And we are live. What is up, YouTubians? Very interesting day I had today, guys. Wanted to share with you. I got the download. Brian Keaton actually messaged me on Twitter on Friday and told me about the news that was going to be dropping. And said, JR, I hope you'll enjoy the big news Monday. I'm only playing a small part. This is from Brian Keaton on Twitter. And he's hoping the announcement represents a paradigm shift in academia. And I'm going to be earnestly appreciate. And this is one of the first, things I posted about this on Twitter. And I got some people saying, oh, this is going to be all hype and no delivery and this and that. But I think this is one of those exceptions where this has actually been delivered on. These guys are delivering on academic change and the stigma in a way that I've never seen. And I couldn't ask for more than this. This is
breaking news today has been announced from Harvard University, courtesy of none other than past guest and frequent friend of the show, Professor Avi Loeb. We're going to get into everything that's happened since the last time he was on the podcast when his wonderful book came out, Extraterrestrial. But today he is joining us to make a special announcement. And I actually have a connection to Avi about special announcements, and it has to do with an announcement he helped to make in 2014 on March 17th. I'll remember the day for the rest of my life. And it was about 400 or so years after, 450 years or so after Galileo Galilei, his birth. And that announcement was about a refracting telescope named BICEP 2. And Avi was a big part of that announcement. But today he's making an announcement also connected to Galileo Galilei. And I don't know much about it, but it is so exciting to hear the announcement that was just made live from the from CFA and elsewhere. Avi, first of all, how are you doing, my friend? And what is this big announcement? What does it have to do with the maestro, my hero, Galileo Galilei?
Thank you, Brian. It's great to be with you. The reason we chose the name Galileo for this project is because it has a potential of revolutionizing our worldview. I'm not saying we will definitely discover something as fundamental as Galileo discovered, which was basically the case that we might not be at the center of the universe. Prior to him, it was very flattering to the ego of a lot of people to believe that we are at the center. And it started with Aristotle and many other people. And then Galileo argued otherwise. And of course, the response was quite negative. And if he was living today, he would have been canceled on social media. But instead, the philosophers at the time refused to look through his telescope. They basically argue that they know the answer without that, and put him in house arrest, and so that he would not communicate his message to a lot of people. And what that accomplished is that their ignorance was maintained for a while, but the Earth continued to move around the sun. And the lesson we learned from that is that looking through new telescopes is a good idea, rather than closing the curtains on our windows and saying, the answer. So we might say we are the smartest in the universe. There is no smarter kid on our cosmic block, and close off the windows. But that doesn't remove any smarter kid from our neighborhood. It only maintains our ignorance. And in much the same spirit, what this project, the Galileo Project, is proposing is to open the curtains on our windows and look out and search for evidence. Now, it might well be that we are the smartest kid on the block. There is nobody else, as a lot of my colleagues argue. And of course, that would be reassuring. It will enhance our self-esteem. But on the other hand, the answer may be different. And science is based on evidence. I should remind, I was asked in a forum a few weeks ago, how do I define an intelligent culture? And my definition was, it's a civilization that follows the guiding principles of science, namely cooperation and sharing of evidence-based knowledge. And there are two components to it. One is cooperation and sharing, which we don't practice very often along human history. If you see the most common phenomenon that you find is people trying to feel superior relative to each other, fighting each other, not cooperating. And the second part of this is evidence-based knowledge. So again, people tend to believe that they know the answer in advance without the evidence. They prefer to stay in their comfort zone. And what this project advocates is searching for evidence. And the reason that this project was announced is because there were two interesting events over the past 4 years or so. First, in October 20.
And I'm going to just cut it right there. So that was an introduction of what's going on. You guys can go and check this video out and watch the whole thing. I got my cool alien shades on for everyone who saw them in the picture. I'm going to put them back on. I got these at Alien Con. And I also got this shirt from Harvard today because I actually took a trip up there, and I have some pictures I can share from that. Let me see if I can't find that. Here we go. So I went to the Center for Astrophysics. This is where Avi Loeb works, or at least where his office is at Harvard. Unfortunately, it was closed, and I couldn't get in. So I'm gonna flip this one. There we go. Boom. So yeah, I went up there today. It was closed. I got to talk to a couple people there, but nobody knew really what was going on with this project. So I decided to wear my alien goggles and my alien glasses, and I walked around. I walked around Harvard for a little bit, and then I drove home. But I'm gonna get a hold of Avi again. I'm gonna send him another email. I've already sent Brian and a bunch of stuff, and had Brian Keaton on my show for an hour, trying to get him to come back on, trying to open up more dialogue and conversation with these guys who are from the academic community, just starting to get interested in the UFO topic and understand all that there is to learn about this. It's quite daunting when you realize how deep the rabbit hole really goes, but some of us never get there because, again, we never look through the telescope. We just refuse to look through the telescope and say that, you know, we already understand this stuff better than you, and that's just the way it is. But another thing that is that we have the other people on the other side of the community, right? So we got Neil Tyson. He's sort of been the other side of the academic community. Him and I guess Bill Nye, very anti-ufology, very anti the search, you know, for you know, ideas of anti-gravity and stuff like that. Even Fermi Labs put out that video on anti-gravity that really showed the other side of the academic community and how resistant they are to looking through the telescope. And what's interesting about Neil is that I met someone recently who was personally connected with Neil, and has got me the message, and it's put now in Neil's ear. And Neil's been he's really a nice guy. He's willing to talk to people once he, you know, realizes that you're real people and not just some lunatic and stuff. So hopefully I can set up a dialogue or a conversation with Neil at some time in the future, because Neil would be a great ally and an asset. And I don't think that the UFO community is right in completely, you know, launching in an all-out attack and assault on the remaining stronghold of the scientific and academic community that is still resistant to this paradigm shift in ideas and opinions on UFOs and extraterrestrials. So just want people to, you know, take a different stance to how we go about, you know, celebrating our victory today, that this is a huge victory for ufology, guys. Just want to, you know, we've been really pushing a lot of information on this channel and getting, access with a lot of awesome people, and starting to get more academic and serious people to take us seriously, man. This is, it's kind of hard to, take this subject seriously. So let's just, joke around and be completely silly about it. While, being also academic and knowledgeable and respectful at the same time. I think we'll get places, because let's get in. All right. So I have, we've been lots of talk going on about, what's in this classified section of the UAP report, right? So there's this alleged UAP report that's been, the UAP task force, if you guys don't know what that is, right? There's a UAP task force, and there's this whole, part of the Senate Select Intelligence Committee that's investigating UAP right now for the government. And there's allegedly a classified section of this report that's been circulated around some senators and congressmen, but no one's yet leaked a copy of that to the public. There's been some allegations of what might, stuff about what it might contain. A couple posts from some people on UFO Twitter, including Richard Dolan, but no hardcore, proof or distinction of what actually is contained in that classified report. So those of you who follow my channel know that we're deep into the science of this stuff, and we're deep into the physics of it. I have a bachelor's degree in physics, and I've dabbled in this stuff for 17 years, talking to whoever I can to find the more most serious people and the most knowledgeable people in all the different subjects in these fields, and sort of bring this information out of obscurity and out of the black world and into the public. That's sort of been the goal here on Alien Scientist for the past 17 years. Well, since 2008, actually, when we started this channel in particular, so not quite that long. But one of the things that we've done is to create a database of scientific related technical papers, all the research that's been done into anti-gravity, propulsion technologies, invisibility cloaking, metamaterials, quasicrystals, fermionic spin metals, quantum metrology, all the more subtle physics, that it from bit stuff, going back to the real foundational physics of when this stuff was sort of laid out during the 1960s and 70s with the Battelle Rencontres and the Battelle Memorial Institute, who's been so central in this investigation. The metallurgy has been done by one defense contractor called Battelle. And Battelle currently runs they manage all of the national labs in the United States. And very interesting company that's it comes up from time to time, but it's not well known or well talked about. But definitely something for the scientists to look into. There's been a number of scientists who worked for Battelle during the late 1940s who said that they were given pieces of this memory metal, or a strange type of material that had shape retention alloys and shape retention properties, and they were asked to reverse engineer the titanium alloys, or given pieces of this and told to figure out what it is and develop methods. And we have actually the paperwork on those on the database, under the Battelle stuff. Got lots of stuff on Battelle, but this memory metal allegedly goes back. A number of witnesses from the Roswell crash scene reported this memory metal, and then shortly after, there was U.S. Air Force material command studies that were done and issued from Wright-Patterson to develop methods for analyzing titanium alloys, and also methods for creating purified titanium for doing metallurgy and alloy experimentation with titanium and titanium alloys. But this could have been, again, benign and nothing more than just general interest in the subject matter. But it's certainly curious that they didn't discover actual memory metal until 10 years after Roswell. But yet people who witnessed Roswell, so many people who handled this material reported that it had these properties, which again wouldn't have been invented for 10 years later. So there's the big question in where those memory metals came from and where they went to, and what memory metals have as what function they have in UFOs, if any. So again, one of the things that Dr. Keaton and Abby Loeb talk about was that, we might be, this Oumuamua asteroid that passed by our galaxy. They said that, why didn't it send out a signal when it passed, if it was, a real space probe, an interstellar space probe from, another civilization. And it says that a lot of the, the stuff out there might be old, defunct, billions-of-year-old alien technology. That might be, we might find more of that out there than we might find of actual extraterrestrials or aliens or things that are, flying around. We might not find evidence of those things right away. It might be easier to find old, defunct technology floating around, and that we might have it might be so advanced and not well understood that we might not, yet comprehend that it is alien technology. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some strange materials that appear on Earth that could be possibly related to alien technology, and that might be worth looking into with some of these projects as well. One of the things was, and I tried to look this up on my website because I had an article on alienscientist.com, but I guess alienscientist.com is down or something, because I'm getting this privacy notice when I go to alienscientist.com, and it won't even let me see the website. It says that there's hackers trying to steal my credit cards. In any case, what is this? Antigravitic technology with patents were about. I don't think that was legit. There was something in there about, with old news about Ning Li, and those were based on rumors that were never verified. And I think this might be, I think it's just clickbait. It's using old rumors and stuff to I don't know if there's any legitimacy to that, BioNerd. Yeah, maybe you can post a link and I can double check on that and make sure it's the one I'm thinking about. But yeah, I got to get the SSI on the website fixed. I think that's what it is. It's expired. But one of the things was Carbonado diamonds. So normally diamonds in nature appear in volcanic tubes called kimberlite pipes. And that's sort of where the diamonds have, this pure form of carbon has the pressure and temperature required to form natural diamonds. And that's where diamonds are typically found, in kimberlite, But a very rare form of diamond called the Carbonado, kimberlite. That's the type of rock. It's called kimberlite, and that's where the diamonds appear, in kimberlite. And it's a volcanic tube that hardens. That's hardened. That's what kimberlite is, and that's where you find diamonds. But carbonados appear in nature in only 2 places in the world: Central African Republic and I think Bolivia. Brazil. Sorry, it's Brazil. So Central African Republic and Brazil, which is weird because there's no kimberlite found in that area. So there's a hypothesis, war going on in science right now for where the heck did these Carbonado diamonds come from? They're really hard. Some of them are even harder than regular diamond. I apparently I heard that, but I didn't confirm that. But they're, Mohs scale hardness are 10, so they're just the same as regular diamond. They're not like an 11 or any harder than regular diamond, but they're different than regular diamond because there's no origin hypothesis for how they got there, where they came from, these billion-year-old clusters of these diamond material, this incredibly hard super material, which doesn't belong there and is inconsistent with all the natural geology. And in the Central African Republic, they find that the native tribes that have like popped up around these Carbonado deposits all have these weird traditions and stories or legends about, you know, that this land and this stuff came from, you know, the sky, like, you know, weird stuff going on with these in Central African Republic with the tribes there about what they believe and what they do with these Carbonado diamonds. They go and dig this stuff up and sell it for some of the trade there. But you can buy these Carbonado diamonds online. I have some of them, and very interesting materials, because this could be billion-year-old defunct alien technology potentially that, you know, fell to the early forming Earth and is actually formed in the early formation of Earth. Again, I don't have any solid evidence for that, other than we looked at some of this under an electron microscope, an SEM, a scanning electron microscope, and we found evidence of titanium nanowires inside the matrix of this diamond crystal. So it's weird why there'd be titanium nanowires, but we found them and they're there, and I have the, you know, a published thing on it. We didn't publish an actual paper on this, but I'm sure you could go and study, get some of these diamond carbonados and study this yourself. So that's one of the things that Avi was talking about is, you know, potentially these, where can we look elsewhere for defunct alien technology? And so, yeah, these are some of the things that I've come across. Another one that I came across is, I was talking to my friend Bruce Fenton. Bruce, let me just look him up real quick so people can check him out and his research. Bruce Fenton has some interesting stuff, that research that he's done. I'm going to try to get him to come on the show at some point and talk to us. He's probably in bed right now over in the UK, but he's got a very interesting, you know, series of papers and videos that he's put out on these tektites. They're only found, again, and deposited in a couple spots where they're just peculiar to the natural geology. You know, it appears there, it's in the geology, but it's like, you know, the geologists are like, well, how did this form? How did this get here? This looks like it was deposited here from meteorites or fell, you know, fell from it. It's basically, it's stuff from space. It doesn't belong there. It's not natural to the geology. It didn't form in the, you know, natural crust of the earth and the volcanoes of the ancient, you know, the ancient earth landscape. This stuff was deposited and fell to space, and they can tell because of the shape of some of these things that, you know, they have this bubble on one side. So they were definitely meteorites that fell. And in any case, he's got some interesting research on that these things should also be studied as potentially, you know, evidence of defunct alien technology, or because they're just weird rocks that don't belong there. So yeah, definitely check out that stuff. Super cool. Oumuamua is another very weird rock. It just it shot through and then took off like a solar sail. Like it was using the sun for some kind of slingshot type propulsion. Very interesting and peculiar. Definitely a good call for, you know, some people say they're just asking for more funding to get more telescopes, and this is just this is just what this is all about, right? So is that really what this is about? Is this about just trying to get more funding for new telescopes, and they're, you know, hopping on the UFO bandwagon to get more interest from the public to buy more telescopes? Is this what's going on? What do you guys think in the comments? You know, let me know what your thoughts are on that. Again, cool stuff. Some cool people that they're doing some interesting research. back to the memory metals and these things, quasicrystals. I want to talk about some of this stuff because yeah, let me put this back on for a second.
In 2017, there was the first object discovered from outside the solar system in the vicinity of Earth. It was given the name Oumuamua, which means a scout in the Hawaiian language, because the telescope that discovered it was in Hawaii. And that's what my book was about. This object didn't look like a comet or an asteroid, nothing like we have seen before. And even the scientists that tried to explain it as a natural object had to invoke something that we've never seen before, like a hydrogen iceberg, nitrogen iceberg, or a cloud of dust particles. But this was the first one that we found. And clearly, it's not like the rocks that we often find in the solar system. So it could be of artificial origin. And then the Pentagon sent a report to Congress admitting that there are some objects in the sky that may be real, but we don't know the nature of. And, that's an amazing admission by the government that they're not doing their job, because their job, the intelligence agencies, are supposed to figure out what flies in the sky, right? It's a matter of national security. So here they come out not only admitting that they see things that they haven't yet fully explored, but in fact, they see things that they cannot explain. And that's when this subject should move away from the talking points of politicians, national security advisors, or military personnel to the realm of science. Because you would never go to a plumber and ask the plumber to bake you a cake, right? So for the same reason, you wouldn't ask politicians or military personnel to explain what they see in the sky. That's the profession of astronomers. And that's the rationale behind this project, the Galileo Project, looking at the sky and figuring out the nature of unidentified aerial phenomena or Oumuamua-like objects. These are objects near Earth that could potentially be equipment sent by another civilization. But if it ends up being something else, at least we explained it. And right now, there is a dense fog that prevents us from realizing what these objects are.
So,
yes, a dense fog. What better way to put that? Yeah, these guys did a great job. I encourage people to go and check out on Dr. Brian Keaton's channel here this video that went live. I think this one went live at 10 this morning or 12. I'm not sure, but really good stuff there. Brian Keaton is been in communication with me back and forth a little bit. I'm trying to send him more information on stuff. It's a lot of info when you start getting into it. And but I told him about quantum radar and some of these new technologies for anti-stealth, because they did talk about it and mention it at one point very briefly. They didn't quite elaborate on it, but I thought it was I brought it up several times in the questions, and I hope it gets addressed at some point. But if we're going to start looking seriously, like SETI and these other programs, like the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, if we're going to start really looking for aliens out there, we have to understand that, sufficiently advanced technology and sufficiently advanced beings, if they can create a warp drive to get here through interstellar distances, then they have to understand about metamaterials. They have to know about, they have to have mastered the electromagnetic spectrum. Metamaterials and the electromagnetic spectrum is cake compared to a warp drive and the type of sophistication that's going to take. So obviously, if they can get here, then they're visiting us like people think, well, they're going to have invisibility technology. And so we need to be smarter than them and have counter invisibility technology or counter stealth technology. So we need to understand a little bit about how these cloaking mechanisms work, and then understand a little bit about how to exploit properties of quantum physics to detect objects that may be existing in the atmosphere or out there somewhere, and utilizing these types of technologies. Now, and also understand that, the sophistication of their anti, counter stealth, their electronic counter measures, so to speak, what's called an ECCM, their electronic counter measures are going to be, way beyond anything that we have if they are extraterrestrials. So they're going to be able to spoof our, anti-spoofing devices as well. So it's sort of like where do you end? But you at least got to try, right? So apparently the military did some interesting research into quantum radar, but they got so many false positives, so-called false positives, that they had to basically shut down the program, and they deemed it kind of useless as far as they could tell. There's lots of things that could break the quantum entanglement other than invisibility cloaks. So I think that there's still a little bit to be worked out with the kinks of the issues of how to get the radar to work perfectly. But apparently I've also heard rumors within the community that this stuff does work really well, and that all these false positives were really just invisible UFOs that lit up the whole sky, and that we started seeing tons of these things, and they shut it down in the military to kind of keep the hush off that. So if that were the case, then it's absolutely something that Avi Loeb would love to look into, and these astronomers would like to check out, because if that's true, and we can, there might be more easy than we think. The military tends to waste a lot of money on their projects, and if we get like these hacker types like we got going on with our group, with the Falcon Space Group and the APEC and ARPE and whatever else, we have a whole bunch of groups, different groups working on different things. The Gravito Flyer Experiment Group, a whole bunch of groups on WhatsApp and where we work on this stuff. So again, we have a database that all of our academics and scientists are putting together and help accumulate all of the important information in one spot and preserve a lot of stuff that's hard to find or hard to get. Also to document, the history of black projects, because that history is by nature not very well known or well documented. And it's important to go back and talk to the people who worked on this and get their information out there through what we do with at American Antigravity, in conjunction with American Antigravity, with Tim Ventura, who I teamed up with about a year ago and started doing these APEC conferences with, which have really been pushing the paradigm in physics and engineering. They don't have a lot of views and stuff. They get more views when I post them on my channel, and I really should go back and fix the audio on some and repost them and make them all good. I got to spend a day doing that at some point here, but yeah, this has been an interesting adventure, because we tend to let everyone on, even the people that are completely reject all science, and the people that adhere to the standard model and adhere to academic physics and stuff. We also bring in some fringer people as well, just to get different perspectives. And I tend to there's a lot of them that sneak in too, that pretend to be serious academics, and then they pretend to have the credentials, and then they come in and give like a presentation on something. There's been some interesting people that have come on and done things, but the idea here is to get people who've worked on these programs to tell their stories. They're when the stuff, as these people are getting older and these programs are retiring and better technologies are being developed within the black world, a lot of this stuff gets declassified and unclassified and gets thrown to DARPA and stuff. So we get to go and pick through that and report on it and bring in the people who worked on it, like Mike Gamble from Boeing Corporation, and we get to bring Mike Gamble on from and talk about all his classified research that he did for Boeing Aerospace, during the 60s and 70s, because it's all declassified now. So we get to go and bring those people on and actually talk to them and cross-analyze them and get important information out of these black programs that otherwise would have been lost to history. And we do a lot of that here. It's we believe in the process of declassification for the betterment of science, and we believe that we need to work together openly on this type of technology, because as we move into the future, we're going to realize that boundaries don't mean anything, and that anyone's going to have the like superpowers we're going to become gods when we have access to this technology, and we need to start getting the responsibility and the adultness together in our minds to be able to deal with the immense powers that we're going to have at our fingertips. Literally anything we can imagine or want to do, we're going to be able to do. And this is a scary future that we're moving into, and we need to be more aware of that as a species, I believe, in order to move forward. But again, I also don't advocate just telling people how to do. Yeah, there was a lot of woo and stuff too. So a lot of this, dude, the good stuff doesn't get declassified, and that's unfortunate, because it's like, but anyways, I got up on the screen right here. Off topic real quick. Hold on, let me answer this off topic, because this is the first super chat of the night. $5 we got from Lord Ludicrous Plaid, and he wants my thoughts on Gary Webb. It's possible that Gary Webb's firearm did what's called a double tap, or double discharge, because there was 2 gunshot wounds to the head, which has prompted some people who've read the autopsy report to claim that it was not a suicide and was in fact a murder. Gary Webb, of course, wrote a book called Dark Alliance, where he investigated the CIA's drug trafficking network in Los Angeles that was infiltrated, through Los Angeles police, and also Oliver North running it in conjunction with the White House and top military, to smuggle cocaine from South America, sell it to South Central LA and other neighborhoods, and they eventually went national with the network that was the distribution networks and stuff. As they basically created guys like Pablo Escobar. They created the whole gang and drug culture, and built that up in conjunction with, Nixon and some of these politicians really banked off this whole private prison industry and the expanding, prison, as we got more people hooked on drugs, and then got them arrested and sent to jail, and started this whole, the private prison industry and everything else that it's spiraled into since the 70s, when the drug war started. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. Gary Webb, his murder, his suicide, and the allegations that it was a murder, and a CIA, that the CIA suicided him in retaliation for exposing their drug trafficking operations, in this book, which is definitely a great book to read. But anyways, let's get back onto other stuff. The conspiracy stuff is less, that stuff is interesting, and the history of the CIA, in diving deep into the deep state of what the CIA was, and how it, the people that went to form the CIA and how they came from, history of like things like Russell and Company. Russell and Company was, of course, the premier. They ran the opium wars, in the mid 19th century and were one of the big opium smugglers in the United States and also in the Far East. But it was basically, you know, these guys have been part of this banking cartel, and they've been drug dealers and you know, that banking and drug dealing have been intertwined and married for, you know, in corruption for centuries now, and throughout world culture, not just American culture. That's just a fact. But anyways, that's a separate thing. We have to understand that there is a lot of corruption. There's a lot of temptation with money, especially when there's big money being thrown around. And I thought that was interesting. What do you guys think about where did the million come from? Because at one point, Avi talks about this million that he got. I don't think it was in this. I don't think it was in this one. I think it was in the 12 o'clock one. This was the 10 o'clock one. And no, was there an earlier one? No. It was on the Galileo channel. So all right, so everyone check out the Galileo Project. They have a new YouTube channel, and they posted this video on the Harvard Galileo Project. For those of you just tuning in now, Harvard has joined the fight. Let me see. Oh, this is 4 hours ago from CBS Boston. Let's see. Let's see this.
A new search for extraterrestrial life in space, a search he calls the Galileo Project.
And he hopes to prove that we have had many extraterrestrial visitors to our solar system. WBZ's Anaritis Rodriguez joins us live here in studio with the out-of-the-world details.
And Lisa, Harvard professor Avi Loeb, who said that an interstellar object spotted in our solar system back in 2017 was an alien creation, now wants to look for more. Today, he launched the Galileo Project, which will use a network of cameras and telescopes, as well as new algorithms to search for mysterious objects. Loeb says that the 2017 object that entered our solar system and passed by Earth was the first interstellar visitor we've seen, but won't be the last.
In tens of billions of other systems within the Milky Way galaxy, we can no longer ignore the possibility that technological civilizations predated us and that we are not the smartest kid on our cosmic block.
Well, the project is being funded by donations, and Loeb says that if funding allows, he will set up telescopes across the globe to scan for these objects. Paula and Lisa, I guess if we're going to look into the unknown, this would be the way to go about it, right?
This is it. Anaritis, thanks so much. And yeah, I guess we aren't necessarily the smartest kid on the cosmic block. But...
Oh, yeah, right. Hey, Matt, if you want to jump on the StreamYard and share your thoughts, guys, I almost want to share this with you. I might send this right. I'm going to send this to you, Matt, right now. Love to have you join. I just sent you the email link, so you can jump on if you want, and because that's a good. This could be a stunt. What if this is just a stunt, right? What if they're not going to really dig in and they're not really going to look into the science, and this is only going to be, a stunt? So I want to talk a little bit about the science because, hey, man, maybe this isn't a stunt, and maybe these guys really are interested in this, and they're coming here to get information, and they want to learn more. So what could I do if my professor and Avi Loeb and all these physics people walked in the room and tuned on this video, and it was time to suddenly get serious and have a serious conversation with academics about what to do about this and this subject and where I'm at with it. So one, I met a contractor. The only person I met when I went to today, when I went to up to Harvard, was an electrical contractor who was there, and I didn't want to interview him on camera or nothing. But he said, "Hey, my son's into this, and what's your YouTube channel?" So I started talking to him about what was going on and what I'm into, and I mentioned that I used to know a guy named Ed Fouché that me and my buddy Dan used to, we used to hang out.
17.
We used to hang out with this dude Ed all the time and have conversations. I have so much recorded stuff on a hard drive somewhere with this dude, going over all kinds of things. Ed Fouché was one of the first people back in 1998 to talk about metamaterials and quasicrystals. He said it was all the rage at the Chow Hall and where he was back at Area 51, where he was a real Area 51 guy that worked out there. We got his whole military service career, all the documents, that show that he was stationed at Nellis. He was, he worked out there on aircraft control, and he talked about quasicrystals and metamaterials back in 1998, which is, I guess, in the best case scenario, you could say it was a lucky guess, but yeah, I think it's more than a lucky guess. He knew people, he knew information, and that led me on a search back in. I found out about Ed back in, like, I think 2004, 2003, right around that area, and that led me down the rabbit hole of, oh my God! Once I learned about metamaterials and Edward Mills Purcell physics of nuclear magnetic resonance, it opened up a whole new realm of physics for me, because it's like, yes, this stuff kind of exists, you learn about it, and when you get your undergraduate degree, but then you start digging into it and you're like, holy crap, like there's so much to this, that they were doing research on nuclear magnetic resonance back, when it was discovered. It was discovered even earlier than this, the 1946 apparently, and kind of dismissed. It was like some Russians came up, I think, discovered it, and they kind of like swept it under the rug. If you really look up the history of magnetic resonance, and it wasn't until 1946 this guy confirmed it, and then all of a sudden, it was like it wasn't talked about. This discovery should have been hailed in physics, and instead it was like, no, this is classified, and we're going to research this in secret. And that's how a lot of the discoveries went in physics throughout this time period, this post 1940. 1946 was the middle of World War II. So the Atomic Energy Commission and the people who ran the Manhattan Project and the secrecy around the physics that was done there. Hey Mark, I'm going to mute you real quick, but welcome to the convo. Hopefully we'll get more people on. I might post this StreamYard link and open it up. We'll see who joins. Not everyone's going to be admitted, but you're welcome to jump on and if you got video and audio and you're not going to come on here with no shirt, we'll let you on. But you have to have video first and show that you have a shirt on, and that you're a real person. So in any case, we'll open this up to open lines right here. So if people want the link, it's right there. Boom. So transformation optics and metamaterials. Okay, so transformation optics and metamaterials is a whole different thing than this magnetic resonance stuff, but you should definitely check out that. And the Mark found this, actually. I'll give him credit for bringing this to my attention. We were compiling this database of every anti-gravity and physics kind of black world technology that's ever been out there, and he came up with this Alzofon experiment from the 1980s, and now all you can find is the debunking site. I don't even know where you can find anything on this. Didn't they take it down? They took down the paper, right?
Yeah, I think they started taking down the paper and put a paywall on it.
Here it is.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think it's got a paywall, though. I'm not sure.
Let's see.
But
yeah, that's the paper.
Yeah, this is it. So, yeah, we found this.
It ties in with a lot of the other stuff that you're talking about. Basically, what we're doing is creating coherent matter. We're just like controlling the spins of the subatomic particles and making them coherent, that they're all spinning in the same direction. And there's a lot of ways to do that, including some of the light, trapped light things that you were talking about can also create that state. And
well, that's kind of what's going on inside a material to communicate light, or to move them. When the light goes through a material, it's basically setting these things into a spin, which translates to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And if you can control the flow and the timing of that spin through the material, as is done with metamaterials, then you can create all these coherent matter states. It's a whole. It branches out into deep physics, which is where it really starts to get interesting.
You remember that weird tall guy that showed up at AlienCon and said that he has a company named Spintronics?
Yeah, well, there's tons of black world money going into that stuff right now.
Well, I never found a company named it, but it's an entire section of science, and you're on the Wikipedia page for it right now. But spin seems to be one of the most important things in physics that's wholly overlooked. If you look at matter, like where does inertial mass come from? It's just incoherent spins.
I thought this was super interesting, that these ideas of spin pumping and these materials that you can create, it's the analog of a battery. We might be able to create better electronic storage devices for storing electronic current, better batteries, essentially, by understanding the innate physics of spin currents and spin pumping and this type of in the material science.
Magnetic fields are spin orientation of valence electrons. So it really is just spin orientation, spintronics as well. If you look at what we're trying to create over here, dynamic nuclear orientation, or the coherent matter states, that is spin orientation of the subatomic nuclei, which is similar to what happens in NMR. But in NMR, it does it to a much lesser degree. You're talking about 1/1000th or 10,000th of what you'd get with EPR. So NMR is basically flipping the entire core of the atom as a whole, because it has a spin together as the whole, even though there's a lot of spins going on there. So you have the axes of a proton, and that's spinning around, and then its axis is also spinning on another axis, and on top of that there's another axis. There's several different axes, but as soon as you reach 3 axes of spin, you start to see a correlation between linear momentum and angular momentum. And this was seen in Boeing with the gyroscopes, although they haven't been able to perfect it to actually lift off the ground. I think the most they achieved was around 7% weight to thrust ratio. But with a 1,500-pound device, they managed to get 100 pounds of thrust using just 2 big, massive gyroscopes spinning in many complex ways. So if you look at the subatomic particles in the core of the atom, the same thing is happening. That's where you get inertial mass from. When you throw an object, you're actually changing its subatomic spins. It's complex subatomic spins. And by orienting those spins, we're able to make crafts weightless. I see you're going to Grabinikov now.
Yeah. So this is interesting because there's a Russian scientist who worked on this with beetle wings, and he said that the scarab beetle, the scarab beetles were actually held as holy by the ancient Egyptians, and the scarab was considered this, to be something, I don't know. Apparently, when the aliens came down and talked to the Egyptians and taught them how to build pyramids, that they told them something about the scarab beetle that they didn't understand, but they knew it was important, and they needed to, idolize this beetle for whatever reason.
The beetles have natural metamaterials on them, like they're shells. You look at it from different angles.
They're metallic. There's a whole number of these beetles in the scarab family that are metallic beetles that look metallic. They have metallic properties, but they're made completely of the organic materials called, the same, just different structures of what's called chitin.
Chitin, your hair, your nails.
Yeah. So it's different structures of it on the micro level will actually create these metallic effects. And scientists have become more interested in this in recent years and are, going out and studying the beetles and studying these materials in more detail. But the optical effects and the ideas of these, like these are natural metamaterials, and what he found through his calculations is that these beetles shouldn't be able to fly, and we're, you know, I'm still curious. I didn't experiment. They're still able to fly in thunderstorms. You know, you don't see them, you know, flying much in thunderstorms. They're still able to fly, but they don't have the same thrust. We found that.
I looked into this a bit. The effect over here is a scalar electric field that's created by the cover for the wings that goes on top. That creates a sort of a block between the bottom negative field and the top positive field.
It's weird because there's like these structures. There's, you know, like you have silk and glass, right? Will create it's the natural structures of the materials will create a static electric charge buildup. Well, the natural structures on these beetle wings actually create an electric charge buildup. So these top plates that come off and lift up, which apparently would, you know, you think they serve no aerodynamic purpose. It's like, what's the point of these big giant, you know, cover things? They're not the wings. So when these things, you know, lift up and they get these little tiny wings that come out and fly this big massive beetle, you know, the scientists said, you know, how the heck does this thing fly with these big giant air flaps that don't, you know, they're not really, they're kind of like wings, but, you know, I guess, but apparently there's an electric charge ratio to these things. So it's like a little mini Biefeld-Brown lifter almost built into the scarab beetle's wings. And the effect is much better in drier conditions and the right, you know, electromagnetic conditions on Earth. But apparently there's this little bit of what was used in the B-2 bomber, that, you know, Biefeld-Brown effect.
Yeah, the high voltage electrostatics. The ions basically just push the oncoming air apart because like charges repel each other.
So it's like the same idea that they utilized in the B2 to give it that extra oomph, that extra lift using the static electric.
There's another component that's going on with the Beetles and also with the Graviflyer device that we were looking at. And there's a couple other devices, including
on the microstructure. I got to find
the
one of the microstructures because they actually did it. They did an SEM of the microstructures on the wings of the Beetle, and it had these designs that look just like this, which are like fractal. They're like these fractal point, you know, structures. And
I wonder if there's a crop circle that looks like that too.
Yeah, but
basically what it's trying to do is create a scalar field. Now, I know Stephen Greer talks a lot about scalar fields, but I just want to break it down what it actually is. A scalar field is a field where it's just a ball of negative or a ball of positive, either electrons added or electrons subtracted from this area. And there's no specific point where, you know, it can lead to. There's no positive and negative. There's just the negative. There's just the positive. And in order to create such a field, you can't do it with your regular power supply because you're going to have the negative here and the positive here. So you're going to have just a regular DC static field. But if you can create some sort of interference in the center, like if you put up an AC standing wave, then you got two scalar fields on either side. Also, the natural metamaterial that you find in these beetle wing covers, well, what are they called, by the way? Creates the same effect, supposedly.
Yeah, so this is nature's way of creating this, but we have to copy nature and do it better. You know what I mean? That's kind of what we have to understand: the science, figure out what nature exploited within the science to make it work, and then back engineer that. And there's a guy who's doing that. I met him at MIT in 2014, and his name is Nathan Cohen, and he runs a site called Fractal Antenna, and he's got a bunch of patents on fractal antennas. And there's a guy who's working on anti-gravity right now, who had a company called, was it Warp Drive
Dynamics.
David Perez is his name. I'll spell it out here for you guys. David Perez. It's like Paris. David Perez. But he was working on these devices, and then all his stuff. He changed the name of his company and went dark, and then filed a bunch more patents and stuff, and I thought it was super interesting. That he was working on this same kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden, now he goes, what's going on with David?
What he was doing with the fractal antennas is that center point that I talked about with the gravity flyer disc, making that standing wave in air by combining two fractal antennas at 90-degree angles at the same frequency. He's able, right over there, top left, what you see there. Those are the 90-degree angled antennas, and they're in that space over there that you're showing with your pointer.
He's just got these little Koch snow. This is the actual picture of it. The setup,
that's exactly what it looks like. And at the right frequency, you can create a standing wave there that would actually push or pull against space-time or something like that.
It's a very basic and very crude, idea of a metamaterial space warp motor. But again,
I'm not sure if it's actually warping space, because even if light does warp around it, it's not conclusive that that's space warping.
So,
but it does.
I had Carl
objects
on here. I was going to bring him in, but he must have jumped. He must have dropped out. Carl was just on here, and I wanted to bring him in. This would be I was waiting for the right time, and this was it. And now he's gone. But Carl, Carl shared this with me, this site, and Chris Mellon's been posting this a bunch, or he posted this on Twitter and talked about this site. And then the site got taken down, so now, of course, we have it here up on Web Archive. But one of the things that, the simulation of the black hole moving in front of a galaxy, and these ideas of black holes and event horizons and Einstein rings and all the physics that goes on here, that all the innate physics of warp drive, right? Once you get into Alcubierre and Alcubierre white warp drive, or the all the innate, the innate space warp dynamics, it basically boils down to you can create a metamaterial if you encapsulate your craft in a metamaterial, right? The innate physics of what's going on here. I want to I gotta find this this diagram now, if it's even on here. Jeez, where's the one of the metamaterials? So let me find it.
So with the Perez device, they were able to show attraction or repulsion through dielectrics and through Faraday cages, which leads me to believe that they found some way of, pulling on the electrons directly in objects in order to pull them forward. I think that's similar to what happens when they're, when the craft are pulling up the cow or making you weightless and you're flying up there.
That's your tractor beam.
That's your tractor beam right there, yeah. Or maybe it's your shields as well.
So there's this whole idea of this space-time, that the space-time metric, or the distance between objects, is mediated by the light, or the ambient light energy between them. So there's this whole idea that if you are able to shine a bright enough light on an object and then time the quantum exchanges correctly, that you can warp the space-time dynamic between the two objects, and actually it feels like space-time's contracting for the object, or at least gives the illusion that it is. You can warp the space-time dynamic. There you go. I muted your mic, Carl. You want to put some headphones on and unmute, you can get in. But again, Ed Fouché talked about this back in 1998 with quasicrystals, and said that quasicrystals were the way to do this. And then I have, in 2005, Eric Quinones saying that, he's got new methods for trapping light with quasicrystals, that they can bend fiber optic signals at 90-degree angles. In 2005, Eric any Quinones. Signal. All right, I gotta take you out, man. Sorry, But
probably has it playing on YouTube as well.
yeah,
so
I know.
yeah.
You got to put headphone. You got to get headphones, Carl, before you can jump back in. Just to get, I want to get you on to give. Let me get him just to give his quick take on UAP theory and drop some points for us. But I want to get into beyond what's on this website with how to actually build this and do this with the material science, and that we're actually further along than a lot of people realize with our understanding of this. But yeah, Carl, go ahead and shut the stream off, and you can jump on whenever you're ready. He's still got it on in the background. He's going to get some headphones, I think. So this is the site that he sent me, and there's videos that they've got of some of these UAPs. These are not the ones that you'll see from, in the mainstream media, but again, I feel like they're keeping a lot of the real info and the real intel on this classified, and the stuff that they're putting out in the MSM they're using to ridicule the subject further and get people not to look into it and not really study it. It's just what it looks like to me is going on. So I understand the cynicism that Matt said earlier when he was like, "Oh, dude,
what do you think of Avi Loeb and his Project Galileo? Get into that yet?"
Yeah, so I started off talking about that in the stream, so that's kind of what this is all about. So, so maybe we could stay back on topic and relate this all back to that. But what we're trying to do with Project Galileo is we're trying to get a hold of the scientific community, use this new found interest of the scientific community in this subject to promote the real intelligence and get the information in the hands of the scientific community where it belongs, and get them to start taking it seriously and not ridicule and where it can't be ridiculed like it's been has been done for so long. So that's kind of the goal here of what we're trying to do, and we're talking about some of the scientific topics that we'd like to. This is the conversation that I'd like to have if Avi Loeb. I'm just picturing Avi Loeb being in the room, and we're trying to, give him an introduction to the research that we do, the science that we're involved in, and the stuff that he ought to maybe, check out or look into that we've come across in our research. So back to that. There's lots of interesting phenomena that are related to this weird electrostatic effects. If you look up 3M invisible wall, there was this David Swenson. Okay, check out this whole thing that happened in 1996 at the 3M adhesive tape plant. And,
yeah, we actually have planned on replicating this. We call it the 4-roller experiment. And basically what this did is created a strong scalar electric field, very high voltage above the breakdown voltage of the air. But because it was scalar, meaning that it was just the negative in that ball, in that center spot, it was just negative there. And the positive would have been everything around it. So it was able to build up to a much higher voltage than you'd normally expect. And at a certain point, the repulsion was so strong that you throw anything in there, it would come bouncing right back at you.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, the interaction between objects, when you're touching something and your hand doesn't go through the table, that's because of electron to electron interactions. So if there's a strong enough electronic repulsion field created, anything that you throw at it will come bouncing back. And as they say in Star Trek, power to the power to the shields. That's how it's done, probably.
Oh, geez. So 20 minutes with a sitting senator and congressman. What questions would I ask? I mean, I don't know if I'd ask them anything. It's more of like them having to sit down for 2 hours and get a briefing from me, rather than them trying to tell me anything. I mean, I could certainly give them a list of questions they ought to try to get answered and look into, that I would look into if I were, a sitting senator or a congressman, and what I would dig into. And it would have a lot to do with Senator Barry Goldwater and what he started digging into, but going a little further. a little bit further than where he, wound up. But again, yeah, shout out to Kurt Jamungle, man. I'm gonna get back up with that dude soon and talk more about theories of everything. In fact, Kurt, I just wanted to let you know that you're gonna have to tune in. It's this Saturday. It's the 31st. Yes, it's this Saturday. So coming up this weekend, this Saturday, the 31st, we're going to do a special APEC conference on. So where's APEC? If you guys go to altpropulsion.com, you can find the APEC conference, and if you go to events, you'll find the conference link for the 31st. This one's going to be cool. We're going to be talking about what is this? I thought we were going to have David. So I thought that David I thought we were going to get David on, David Chester from Quantum Gravity Research.
Oh no, David didn't respond, so we might be getting him on in sometime in August.
Okay, yeah.
We are having Ken Griggs there, who worked with you on the Phoenix theory.
Yeah, so Ken Griggs is going to come on and talk about his theory of everything. So that should be interesting. That will be at 3 p.m. So yeah, so if you want to tune in at 3 p.m. for that.
3 p.m. Eastern, so that's 6 p.m. 3 p.m. Pacific, that's 6 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, so it's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gonna be on. Yeah, so 6 and then 7 will be the Q&A session. So if you have any questions about Phoenix theory, we can ask that then. And he's going to be talking about his Phoenix theory and giving us some updates on what he's working on with that. It's a very interesting theory of everything, which is one of the more interesting ones I've come across. Ken Griggs is a world-class theoretical physicist. He is literally one of the smartest theoretical physicists I've ever met, and he worked under his advisor was at Princeton was Jim Gates. So he's definitely world class with what he knows and and the work that he does and his knowledge of physics. So definitely someone to check out and something you won't want to miss. If you're gonna tune in, you're not interested in all the stuff that we're doing at APEC this weekend, at least tune in for that if you're interested in the theories of everything and that stuff. So yeah, we should get more people on. So another thing, Kurt said he's getting Richard Dolan on his show. So we gotta come up with some good questions for Richard Dolan to ask when he goes on Kurt's show. So let the word out that Kurt's looking for some good Dolan material, and we'll have to I got to put together some more stuff. He's done so many interviews, and I've seen so much stuff with him. This couple things that stand out, but not I don't know. He's an interesting guy, and Mark, you sat next to Dolan at the airport right on the way back from AlienCon, right?
Oh yeah, that was quite a coincidence. He's a pretty interesting guy. Talks in a very calm demeanor, and it's very professional. I explained to him, the Alzofon theory and what we were doing, and he said if we ever have positive results, he'll drive down from Rochester right away to come and verify and be there. He's a UFO historian, and he has a YouTube channel where he does like updates every week or two. And he lives in Rochester, New York. He's a pretty cool guy. He's kind of taken over where other UFO historians have left off, and just trying to continue the story and see what's going on. So if you ever have a chance to see Richard Dolan in person, he's a pretty good speaker. But he's not into the technology that much. He's more about the sightings and
he's case history guy and talking about
Michael Schratt. Like he's really tight with Michael Schratt and that kind of stuff.
Right. But yeah, he's got some interesting leads. You know, that he had that lead on Kaio's song, which was at least somewhat interesting. You know, with as far as some of the physics and the classified UAP report. So I mean, he's not. He's made some weird claims in the past, you know, like, and I know that he worked with. I want to know what his relationship was with, you know, remember that CIA deathbed confession video? I want to know what was up with that, because that was really popular and it got a lot of views, and he did that with Richard. He did that with Jeremy Corbell. See, this is Richard Dolan and Jeremy Corbell in the beginning sequence of that. They're the ones who put this together, and this guy was disinformation, man. He was none of the stuff that we did a big investigative thing on everything he said, and it was just like it got so many views, it got so much fanfare. It was one of the most popular videos for forever, man. People were sending that to me, and I'm like, this dude's not legit, you know. So, anyways, so some of the stuff that Richard Dolan's been involved in is questionable, and
one of the telltale signs that something is disinformation is that it's promulgated openly by the
mainstream media.
The mainstream media, unless, you know, in some cases there are cases of real information going out there by the mainstream media, but that's being spoon-fed to us for an ulterior objective.
Yeah, that's usually what I do. Is I go to, like, you know, CNN or, you know, some of these other propaganda and, you know, intelligence arms, and see what kind of drivel they're spreading about UFOs. It gives you a good idea of, you know, nothing in here about the technology, nothing in here about, you know, the science.
Technology and the science is all that matters, and that's why I'm with you, alien scientists, because the science is all that matters. Everything else is like, it's long drawn conclusions. It's like researching airplanes by looking through binoculars. It's insanity. You got to get to the technology if you want to really figure out what these things are. Carl mentioned that Kaio's song is involved with Tesla Tech, and we're going to be there at Tesla Tech this year.
Oh, really? Interesting. That'd be cool if he showed up to Tesla Tech again. Yeah, Tesla Tech is going to be August 11th to the 15th out in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You could still get tickets and registration. You'll get a percentage off if you mention Alien Scientist, and you know, hopefully you guys can sign up, and I'll see you there. And even if you're going to just stop by the hotel if you're in the area or whatever, that would be cool to meet up with you. And we'll have to have an event like this on the East Coast at some point, where we have like you know, we can have a big meetup, and that'd be fun too.
Also, Steve Ellswick, the head of Tesla Tech, said that if you mention Alien Scientist when you call in, you'll get 20%, or I think it was 30% off. So give him a call and place your order for tickets. They'll also throw in a free pre-conference workshop that's going to be taking place. That's a $50 value for anyone who is a listener to the Alien Scientist channel. Just mention it when you call.
So, Carl, you can unmute if you shut off the background audio, and give us a little bit of your rundown on this, if you'd like.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. So, when I read this webpage, I was sort of just, my first take was kind of like, I'm going to read this later, and then it went away. And I was sort of like, why'd it go away? You know, real quick. And then I found that Chris Mellon tweeted it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to pay attention.
The videos got taken down too.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't surprise me, man. Like, it doesn't surprise me. So,
yeah.
This guy is, I just want to preface a little bit of my take on it, like a few days later. This is harmonious with everything that Hal Puthoff and Disclosure team is stipulating, and it makes sense why sort of like they're going to the idea of this entanglement network of quantum gravity, and so that's sort of like the sort of, I think the basis of the hypothesis here is that essentially what we're looking at is, okay, there's no like estimation of mechanics here. It's kind of just like phenomena. What are we looking at? Let's pretend this is a quantum gravity drive, and they're manipulating gravity at a quantum level, and the craft is itself a theory of everything machine. That's the hypothesis. And so the craft itself being that, like, it can access quantum gravity the same way that a quantum computer can access quantum mechanics. And that's what the phenomena we're looking at would be, according to the scopes that they've identified here. I have no idea if that's what it looks like, but that's the hypothesis.
You know what's the weirdest thing, right? Is one of my favorite movies was remember Flight of the Navigator?
Yeah.
Remember the UFO from that? It was like metallic but reflective, remember? And that's how it warped. It warped the actual space-time in front of it to like stretch it out, and then it took off. But it's interesting. Remember when it showed up, it was just like this reflective like thing where it just reflected all the light that was around it back out. And but it also warped the reflection of that light slightly. So it can use these it uses this like super reflective mirrors or something. It's like a metamaterial or a quasicrystal. I don't know how else we can build it.
If you want to figure out why light is refracting, look no further than a pair of glasses, which also create refractive indexes. So when light enters it, glass itself. When light enters another medium that is see-through, it gets converted into an electron, and then that electron jumps from molecule to molecule or atom to atom, depending on the material. And it follows those lines until it comes out the other end, and it slows down in the process as well. So that is, one way that you can create it.
So one of the interesting things that I think it relates to quantum physics in a much deeper sense, as he was explaining through this in quantum entanglement and this understanding of the physics of it, because you have to understand that matter is just wave packets, and it's a series of waves that are transpositioned or transposed onto a single point in space-time, which create this wave packet. And the wave packet has the phase velocity and the group velocity.
When you have that, it's spinning, because a sinusoidal wave that is stuck in one spot is basically a circle. So when you have it spinning around, you have an axis. That's basically a particle. When the axis starts to spin in on itself, and you're adding extra axes to it, that's when you start to get matter.
Guys, I just want to say, like, I'm so curious about everything you've just been talking about and your research in terms of quantum spin. I don't know a lot about it, but like, it just seems like that's the periphery of the conversation. That
that's what we're working on, literally right here.
Yeah. It seems like that just is, everything from toward, physics to.
This is a good video that was produced recently by Space-Time PBS. And they have this visualization right here, this animation right here to kind of show this. They called it spin, right? But actually what Pauly wanted to call it originally was he wanted to call it classically non-describable two-valuedness. So that was the actual definition for what Pauly wanted to call spin, but they ended up calling it spin instead. But it's not really spin, because because if you see in this animation, you have to rotate it actually 2 times around to get back to the start. So if you rotate it once around 360 degrees, you're still not at the start. You have to rotate it around 720 degrees 2 times in order to get it in.
The cube itself is back to the starting point, but the ribbons have a twist compared to how they started. Amazingly, if we rotate another 360, not backwards, but in the same direction, we get the whole system back to the original state.
See?
Another thing to notice is that the cube can rotate any number of times with any number of ribbons attached. And
so then they do it like this, but this is a good model because that shows the quantum entanglement of what's actually happening. You know, these lines are actually quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
It shows the topology of the network, the information flow across the network, which is what happens when we move physically objects through space-time. So it's I thought that this was like, oh my God, this is great.
Never
Have you seen the minute physics visualization of electron movement around atoms, like the electron orbitals? It's fascinating to see the pattern that you just showed as the trajectory of electrons. But the guy from YouTube has done it for different electron orbitals. It's really fascinating. It's great.
Heck yeah. So again, it's spintronics, but there's more innate physics going on, and it has to do with the quantum entanglement. And if you can get these things doing the right dance, you can get that quantum entanglement and that information flow to basically make your entire craft two-dimensional.
You want to stop it from doing the dance. You want to keep it flat so that it's no longer intricate. Because when you get to the third axis of rotation, that's when you start connecting to space-time directly and having like an angular momentum to a linear momentum connection. So you really want to get rid of that extra spin and just make it coherent, make it all spinning on one level.
Is that extra spin caused by the surrounding energy environment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's the C. It's the C
effect.
The C. Yeah.
That's UAP theory right there for you.
Yeah, it's the randomness of the interactions, everything going on. Second law of thermodynamics. Yeah. Incoherent matter. The spins are spinning in all different directions, and then there's a spin of the spin and a spin of that spin, and then it's spinning around, and then you have at a certain point you have heat where it's the molecule bouncing back and forth and sort of spinning between different objects. That's heat, and then the object itself is on a planet that's spinning around, and then that planet is spinning around the sun, and then the sun is spinning around. Everything is spinning. Spinning is pretty much all there is.
It's all
right. So if you had so the theory for UAP theory.com is that there are the trick of the machine is that it can compute its own geodesic to fall along, which is to say that if we sit on the planet right now and we don't have any special properties, we are falling along a geodesic that's perpendicular to the ground according to its center of our mass. And that the power of the device is to be able to rotate that geodesic so that we're no longer falling along the perpendicular to the Earth, but somewhere else. And that's
something else.
Well, the geodesic is created through the illusion of how the space-time it connects. So I think it's done through what's called conformal mapping. Okay. And this is, again, it's heavily related to invisibility, which is why, he talks about, part 2 here with the invisibility factor of this.
So is dynamic nuclear orientation. It's also connected to invisibility. But what I'm talking about over here with the coherent spins is not going to make any movement. It's just going to make inertial mass cancellation or gravity shielding. So you will need a secondary system to move it.
Oh, that's so interesting because that's so often what I've seen talked about is that like there's lift, but there's propulsion. There's a differentiation between the mechanistic movement of the craft. That's fascinating that you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, and that's literally what I'm working on right now. We're just waiting for some connectors to come in from Amazon so I can hook it up.
So if I understand the context of UAP theory, and I might be imagining my own sort of sci-fi version of this individual's idea, but that rather than translate, let's imagine two geodesics as as a sphere, and it has a pivot. And movement is not that I'm going to say I'm here in space in XYZ position. I'm going to translate to this other XYZ position, but rather that my geodesic center is going to translate wherever I'm going to go. And that then it's not really that you're ever moving. You're always continually falling on that geodesic, but you're mathematically just changing the position of your geodesic center.
I think that's done physically through adjusting the conformal mapping of the space-time flow around the craft, like literally the photonic energy, and it goes. Yeah.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to agree with you.
Yes, this is. I think it's done through the illusion of optics, what's called conformal optics. I learned this word conformal, and I lost it. I was like, "What's the word?" It begins with a C, and and then I found it again today before the show. Luckily, and conformal optics is a whole branch of optics. It's all about these, distortions in the optical space-time, manifolds, and I think there's ways to create this and create these using metamaterials and also pumped optics and also the squeezed optics.
That's a cool idea. I like this idea.
So squeezed light. So squeezed light is a huge part of this, because I think that there's light squeezing involved, at least on one side of the craft, because the light squeezing will reduce that quantum noise. Again, that noise factor is that randomness is what causes gravity. That causes that third dimension to pop in, like Mark says, and that if you can eliminate that random,
that is what creates coherent matter. According to Alzofon, what creates gravity is a direct electromagnetic attraction between subatomic particles. And in order to remove that attraction, you can only have the attraction when they're lined up together. So it will happen on a random scale. In a quantum level, it will happen randomly when you would actually have two subatomic particles that line up and attract to each other, one being in the Earth and one being in the object being attracted. But when you have all of the lines lined up perfectly straight, lined up perfectly, on one axis, then the chances of having any subatomic particle in the Earth that will attract to it is close to zero, and the craft will be free from the constraints of gravity.
So I want to point out something in the math that should come as a surprise to anyone who wants to dive into it, to the math side of this. But if you take photon momentum, right? So every photon supposedly has this momentum that's associated with it, right? So what happens if I take two photons that are out of phase, and you destructively interfere those two photons?
Measure them.
What happens to that photon momentum? Shouldn't it double? It should be twice, right?
Well, wouldn't it change direction?
But it doesn't.
It doesn't change direction?
I think it changes. I think it's opposite. The photon momentum cancels out.
I'm guessing at that. So don't
the phase.
Don't
the
this.
So what is the photon momentum associated with the phase somehow? Because if the photon momentums cancel and because you take two destructively interfering photons, they should have double the momentum, but in fact they have zero momentum. So that means that the phase must adjust the momentum of the photon somehow. So then, what's?
I thought that what I was.
So then,
I don't think they actually have. According to my theory, they wouldn't actually have momentum, but they will be able to create momentum on something that they strike by changing its spins. And like I said before, the angular momentum is able to be translated into linear momentum by a change of spin. So if you're changing the spin in the object that you're hitting, it will seem to be that the light is hitting it, making it move. But in reality, the light is coming in, it's energizing it. That new energy state translates into linear momentum, hence the object would move. But when you have two lights that are coming in with opposite phases, they would no longer be able to interact in that way and change the spin of the object and push it. Just an idea.
Right. Well, if you look at the symbol for the graviton, the Feynman diagram, it's literally two photons destructively interfering, or a bunch of photons that are destructively interfering, which causes this squeezing or this warping of space-time between objects.
Hey, what do you guys think about Hal Puthoff's idea about the vacuum as representation about that, like subatomic communication system? That there's different types of vacuums that like, and that is the pushback against gravity. Like whatever the atomic particle is, like those, like those little ziggly lines right there. That's basically the computational pushback against whatever it's interfering with. That says, okay, you're this much weight, you're this much gravity, because you have these many like entanglement networks. Is that kind of along? Maybe I muddled his idea, but like that's kind of my interpretation of his thought process along.
I mean, if you're talking about the background noise or radiation, then that would affect everything equally. So if our weight went up, you wouldn't feel it because the matter densities would change universally. Another thing that you mentioned in the beginning was his quantum not teleportation, quantum communication device that he's actually working on right now.
Yeah,
that's something that was talked about in Billy Meyer's story, where he said that they basically took a atom and split it in two, or subatomic particles, split them in two, so that they had two quantumly entangled particles, and they would put one in each device and be able to communicate throughout space and time instantaneously. So even if you went to a different time zone or a different timeline, or travel into the future or into the past or across the entire universe, you'd be able to communicate instantaneously with this device with its pair because of quantum entanglement. That is, I think, what he's working on right now at the moment. And one of the big obstacles were making larger and larger particles quantumly entangled, and he says that they have fixed that problem already.
I'm gonna feel like a jackass. I'm sorry, Jeremy. This is your show, but the idea that I was trying to draw my short-term memory to was with I think something associated with chromogravity, associating with like muons and subatomic particles, like mapping chromography onto their communication network. And that being an explanation for, in some way, Hal Puthoff's description of the similar process. But man, like I should have before I brought that up, I should have definitely had better links for you, because I want more information than my poor memory.
So Pablo posted a good link here in the description, man. Thank you for that. He's in the background. I can't add him to the call because he doesn't have a microphone connected or any devices. So, but he's there in the background sharing some cool, good physics in the live chat. This is an interesting one. So the role of what's called whale curvature. So this is like those conformal mappings that I was talking about. That whale curvature is an aspect of that, and this subtleness of Maxwell's equations. Brian Keaton at one point during this thing mentions, that Maxwell wrote down these 4 equations, and that's been, it since then. But he didn't just write down 4 equations. And Richard Van Duyck, I pointed out, goes over that. And
you wrote down like 20 equations that were
there were
into 4.
20 equations, right? So if you go to Richard Van Duyck, his lecture on field was it the field effect propulsion? I think this is it. Where he, right in the beginning,
there it is.
The Heaviside Gibb reformulate, because I had this queued up before. So Maxwell formulated in his original treatise on electromagnetism, and he had 20 equations with 20 variables, and then Heaviside and Gibb came in and employed the curl and divergence operators to make the vector calculus to reformulate the equations into 4 equations with 4 variables. So it was briefly covered, and it's not really covered well in the literature. So some textbooks that teach electromagnetism teach it with Jeffermenko as the text, and Jeffermenko kind of goes into that a little bit in his book, but I don't remember Griffiths going into this at all. I couldn't find anything in Griffiths. David J. Griffith's electromagnetism book, which is the textbook which they teach undergrads electromagnetism from. I couldn't find anything about the original, equations and his reformulation. All he said was, you take there was the 4 integral versions, and then the 4 differential.
This is what they don't teach you in your PhD college course. And this is one of the primary things that people are missing when they go to college. They don't learn anything about all of Maxwell's equations and the inner workings of NMR, EPR, or pulsed EPR and its connection with dynamic nuclear orientation, stuff that they don't teach in college. That's how the scientific cover-up has been promulgated.
So these are actually it was weird, man, because that makes me wonder if I gotta ask Brian Keaton to go and check that out. I'm gonna go and send him that interview and make him eat his words on that Maxwell's 4 equations comment, because we got to get into this, because there's actually 8 of them if you consider the differential and integral forms, but it goes deeper than that, because none of this makes sense. According to Griffiths, he says, well, you just got to add the continuity equation, and then it works. Everything works itself out. But
think of like the time component.
Definitely want to check out Richard Van Durick's lecture here on that APEC 12.5 part 4 on American anti-gravity, and if you want to learn more about that, I should repost this on my channel too, because this was a key gem that Richard went through and really studied this and explains it all, and much better than I can do right now. So we're going to keep going.
I wouldn't be surprised if this guy Richard Van Durick wins a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, man, Richard is incredible, and he's one of the best. We had some really great guests on APEC. And I just expect it to get better now that Harvard is leading the game to make UFOs acceptable. So if Harvard's doing it and leading the charge with Avi Loeb out there, Harvard's doing it. It's now safe for everyone else in the academic community to embrace this. And this is a key celebration. This is an awesome day, man. Everyone here contributed to this in some way, in some small way, whether they know it or not. And we're all here now, living in this paradigm shift. Literally, it's the paradigm shift. It's happening. This is great. We want.
Can we get Avi Loeb on the channel?
Yeah, I'm gonna write to him, man. We gotta get Avi to come on and talk about some of these ideas. I want to get Bruce Fenton to come on and talk about his papers there on these Australian tektites, and his paper that he's putting together on the research that he's done into those very interesting geological pieces of evidence of what could be defunct UFO or alien or extraterrestrial technologies. Definitely more to another one that another one I want to get on is Valet and Nolan. What's the guy? Jack Valet, right?
How about Jack Sarfati?
Oh, we get him on all the time, man. We go. I just read his emails, man. Jack's good, man. I've been trying to get him to come on. He said he's 80 years old, and I'm gonna put him in the hospital if he gets on and has to argue with me. That's what he said. So,
Yeah.
I
I'll stick to
understand.
sending 10 emails to you on
10
Monday.
emails. That's fine. I'll half of them I don't read. I read them at the end, so they're all together in the chain. That way I can get through it all at once, rather than try to keep up with it all, man, because it's so much. Anyways, where's the one on the material composition of UFOs? This is cool. So Dr. Gary Nolan and Jack Valet, he's the ones that they made another call out, one of these call outs to people to send them materials or debris to analyze that they thought were the real deal. And he's of course got all kinds of equipment to do isotopic analysis and ratio analysis, and comes up with all kinds of cool stuff on these material composition and stuff of these pretty awesome materials. So yeah, definitely check out Dr. Gary Nolan. And wow, it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah, late. Hey guys, let me ask you a question, because I in relation to the Galileo announcement, I'm curious what you guys think about things like drone, like consumer grade drone technologies, and being able to record high speed, like let's say 60 frames per second, camera capabilities. I've seen some videos coming out that look pretty reasonable as far as, debunking them. Is this something that Project Galileo should be sort of like looking into? Like, what are things that people could be putting on their houses, putting like buying drones, like camera systems that we could be looking into that are of
I think it's really more about the software that controls the camera and the gimbal that can evaluate whether it's an airplane or a bird or an insect. The software part of it is really big, so that's really where they need to work together in a big group and figure out the most cost-effective way to find, to pinpoint different objects. I see Jeremy pulled up Project Sky Hub, which is similar.
I was curious about this.
Yeah, it's a similar concept. They're basically just setting up drones and cameras, webcams, whatever. And
totally. Because there's got to be like a minimum frame rate that meets the UAP's velocity to be able to capture it at a reduced, motion blur of some clarity. And so
part of it is figuring out where they're coming.
Technology.
Like if every first Tuesday of every month they're showing up in, over Rochester, New York, or whatever, and they're going to a specific spot, then eventually we could find these patterns and come up with a better telescope and the better camera to pinpoint that device and try to figure out where it's landing, what it's doing. But my personal opinion, I think many of these UAPs are actually man-made craft. We've perfected this technology back 70 years ago.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But let's say that they're hypersonic, that they're somewhere within, less than speed of light and faster than Mach 6 or Mach 3. And
you're going to have a hard time seeing it.
What type of drone, what type of frames per second do we need to document it?
It's not just the frames per second, it's the software behind it too, because you're not going to be evaluating that much data in order to find something that's streaking by the camera at Mach 6. So it's really the entire package.
Well, the other thing is I mentioned too is we also needed to explore anti-stealth technologies and ways to illuminate invisible stuff in the sky. As we mentioned, there were some UFOs back in the day that were using infrared. Where they used a I think a third generation infrared night vision scope, and they could see this object there that was there, but it wasn't their invisible spectrum. I think infrared UFOs. You can look this up. So there's signatures of. There's also pilots that have, in cases where pilots have reported, getting the infrared radar signature of the UFO, seeing it on their sensors, and then looking there physically and seeing absolutely nothing. But like a blurry. Also almost like you see like something using that cloaking in a video game or something, where it's got that watery kind of heat wave effect around the area, where it looks like a giant heat wave, which is kind of what they create in that. If you look up mirage effect invisibility, you can find this nanotechnology mirage effect, where they use nanotech sheets of these carbon nanotube sheets, and they run a lot of current through these nanotubes, and it creates this invisibility cloak effect.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, so there's ways to produce this using nanomaterials and nanotechnology and electricity and just electrical effects and combination with nanotechnology. These wires heat up to tens of thousands of degrees or something, like right at the surface, but it's like a localized heat. And the localized heat effect causes that heat wave to literally warp the electromagnetic fields, which create that invisibility mirage effect. Similar to the way that a hot pavement does it on a long stretch of highway. But yeah, it's amazing effects. We're just learning about this with our science, and it's only a matter of time before we figure this stuff out. And it's going to happen here, guys. People, awesome stuff. Yeah, it's like Predator. But there's been people that have reported seeing these craft where they can see them on their radar sensors and their infrared, but they're not physically there. So we need more sensors in other frequency bands. You know what I mean? I think that needs to be these things. Obviously they're not going to operate invisible if they know that that's what humans see in, because they don't want us to detect them. If they want to avoid human detection, they're going to not operate in our detectable, world sphere, I guess, if you want to call it that.
It seems unreasonable that a localized gravity effect is going very far away from that craft. Is one thing that's in the back of my mind. I don't know if there's any type of way to get optical resolution of gravity and just like warping of gravity, but that would be a way to sort of put a nail in that coffin, so to speak. So is this a gravity drive or not? Yeah,
if we could have laser interferometry too, because one way to build, didn't Jeremiah build yeah, he did. You can watch the video, but and Wayne has it too. Warp interferometer. They built a very simple one out of a pen laser, and they got they got the fringes showing up, the fringe effect, where they built this and for less than $10, I think.
That's science for you.
Less than $10. So this would have been a multi-million-dollar experiment back in the 60s, but we can do it today with our technology for like $10. Pretty cool. Yeah, we need better sensors and better, and really the Chinese had got us beat with all this stuff because they're the ones who have all the hardware to build this stuff, and that's been a serious concern for national security. It's been talked about at numerous meetings with these people. So okay, so build a scalar interferometry weapon and show me how it works, dude. And then it's obviously energy in, and then I pointed out the issues of energetics. So not saying that these weapons don't exist or these effects don't exist. The issue that I raised was an energetics issue, if you know the science behind what I argued in that case. So it's an energetics issue. It's energy input. The energy has to come from somewhere So yeah, if we have free energy, then show me it. That's the whole debate, is that the free energy, where the energy come from in this. So the argument for those people made is that, oh, it came from free energy technology that the government's also hiding. Well, I don't believe in that. So show me evidence that there's real free energy technology, and show me how to create it, and then I'll believe you. But until I see evidence of that, I'm not going to believe it. Okay, there is evidence that there is scalar interferometry weapons, that you can build weapons out of, using scalar interferometry, and also masers and lasers and all that kind of stuff. But so in any case,
that word free energy is thrown around way too much. I think really what we need is a direct heat to electricity conversion device. If we could turn on an air conditioner, and instead of costing electricity, it actually creates electricity, turning heat directly into electricity, that will solve the world's energy problem.
Yeah, it would, man. Just like Bill Alec was trying to do.
No, he wasn't. His version of free energy steals from the grid.
Yeah. Oh, God.
It's free for him.
Hey, man, Hal Puthoff says there's free energy in the vacuum. And Hal Puthoff has all of the answers.
Moray King is another guy who's going to be at Tesla Tech. We're going to have this free energy debate with. So definitely tune back with us then for Tesla Tech. We're going to do some more streams before then, of course. But check out the Breakthrough Energy Movement, and as well, teslatech.info for the information on the conference. Hopefully we can see some of you guys out there, and hopefully one of you guys in the crowd actually has free energy and is sitting on some real serious government secrets, and you can bring them down to Albuquerque, and we'll be, of course, live, and they can interrupt the stream or they can shut us down, but man, we're going to get disclosure. If this is real, we're going to make disclosure happen. So yeah. So yeah, Tom Bearden, ask him if he pays an electrical bill, or if they got charged for stealing from the grid. I don't know, but anyways, yeah. So I'm not counting on all that, but yeah, if one of you guys is sitting on that anti-gravity or that free energy technology, then come down to Tesla Tech, and I'd love to have a conversation with you and get you on air and cross-examine you with some of our people. So, in any case, anything else left? Closing thoughts? Anyone else want to say anything? I want to get going here. It's 2 hours, man. I want to wrap this.
No, man. I'm glad that Mark, of course.
I was just going to say we hope to have experimental results from the Alzofon experiment in the near future. I'm just waiting for some wires and connectors to come in. Today I was testing the wires that I do have, because we're dealing with pretty high frequencies, way up in the gigahertz in the C-band range. So I'm trying different wires that I have here to see what their loss levels are, and we ordered some new ones. When they arrive, I'll be able to hook up the signal generator and signal analyzer to my my Klystron over here, which is a microwave amplifier, and connected to a whole bunch of different devices over there. We'll basically make sure that the energy is all going into that box at the end in a coherent manner, and then that is going to sit inside of a coherent electromagnetic field, and we're going to try to create this coherent matter state that I've been talking about. If we see a weight loss in this project, we should be moving towards more exciting, more larger experiments that will eventually culminate with an entire craft taking off, and space mining and all the good stuff that brings.
Yeah, man, we're gonna try to do this live stream. I went and ordered a power supply for my camera, because I'm gonna need to power my camera and have a camera running with the live stream. So I'm trying to get the camera working. I went and ordered a power supply from Canon, and it doesn't fit either one of my cameras. I don't know what's going on with it. So I got to call Canon tech support tomorrow and try to get that power supply returned and get the right one that works with my cameras, so that we can set it up to I'm trying to get all the bugs worked out so that we can live stream that event, and I have everything set up to do it. So I'm going to I'm trying to get everything set up, and then we're going to go somewhere else and around here and just try to do a live stream before I jump on the plane with all this equipment, and then try to do it, on spontaneously live from Albuquerque. So yes, working on it, and I hope to live stream.
Mark, good luck on your experiments this week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, it's all right. We're still trying to understand the science ourselves, so that's good. We it took these probably aliens a lot longer than us to figure this stuff out, and we've kind of got a cheat sheet based on the black world research that we've done. So hopefully it helps academia reach their goals faster. If that's all I'm hoping, is that we can, some of the information that maybe I've dug up might be of use to these people, and that it would help them. And that's all we're trying to do, is get that out to the greater academic and scientific community, of which we already have. We've succeeded. There's tons of people that watch all those academic channels that also tune into Alien Scientists and listen to what we cover. So I think we're already doing it, and I think that it's we're getting rid of a lot of that confusion. It is confusing. There's a lot of bad information. There's a lot of bad ideas. There's a lot of bad theories. There's a lot of, wrong theories and wrong ideas that were held as, scientific fact, and need to be eliminated. False knowledge is more dangerous than information. So again, thank you everyone who is part of this, and I'm glad that we're making headlines and breaking paradigms in the mass acceptance of this science. It's real science. We're doing real science, and unlike Bob Lazar. No, Bob's cool, but I'm not going to diss on Bob anymore. It's just that he gets a little more attention than he deserves when there's lots of other physicists who worked on black projects that, should be talked about, because they got a lot more physics to talk about than Bob. But anyways.
What's his name? Tim Ventura was on a call the other day with me, and he was talking about how he spoke to Bob almost every day for a year, and he concluded that Bob will make a mountain out of a molehill, so long as it supported his ego. And somebody else mentioned on the call that that's exactly the kind of person you would want for disinformation. So you take him, show him real shit, give him disinformation as to how the technology works, and he'd just go out and scream it to anyone that would listen.
Yeah, so we have a theory on Bob that he was brought out by Richard Doty, who was a disinformation agent at the time, and given a blue folder full of all this disinfo that they had set up for him, and that, the whole point was to bring him out there, show him a bunch of disinfo, because they knew he would blab his mouth and tell everybody.
Well, he said as much. I mean, he said that the information he was given could be a lie to some degree, and it was
right
given to test if he'd give it away, and he gave a lot of it's a perfect lie because it gives him culpability. It's a wonderful story.
All right, everyone's dropping off. They're like, all right, we're talking about Bob. The stream's over. All right, guys, have a good night.
Good night, everyone,
and thank you for tuning in. And we'll hopefully be talking to Avi and Brian Keaton and some of these other academics soon. Hopefully Eric Weinstein. I got the bug in all these people's ear already, man. So it's happening. We're getting the information to the right people in the academic and the intellectual community. This is Disclosure. Thank you for being part of this. Good night.
Live long and prosper. Are we?